just makes you more of who you are. So.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it.
That's kind of lit though. She had to let everyone know. That's cool.
So Jason, I mean, by the way, at QB Stew, I've been keeping up with your Instagram, and you're posting some kind of like really iconic stuff on there. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about that at first? I mean, you know, you've been talking to some big fish as well. I mean, you know, all these big guys that are not only in Forex that have created a name for themselves. They're all enterprising people.
Right.
You know, my question is, you know, a lot of people kind of suffer from a lack of motivation. You know, how would you say your football and overall kind of athletic career has shaped your entrepreneurial career?
I love that. Well, first and foremost about Instagram is I've always just viewed it as a public journal. You know, so many people always struggle with like, well, what content do I create? What should I make? What should I make? Versus just actually documenting the journey, you know, showing the transparency of what's going on. And the easiest way I can put that is like, if you look at the amount of people in the Forex industry that have made $100,000 in a day, it's actually a much bigger list than I think people realize. But when they actually take the accomplishment and figure out, okay, now how do I put this in a video format? You know, how do I take 3 years of struggle and frustration and heartache and show people, you know, that in 3 minutes and get them feeling good, but then also motivated and excited to keep doing it themselves. So you're right, bro. I mean, like not having any scholarships out of high school and having to go grind my tail off at multiple schools to even get a couple D1 scholarships. It just goes to show that like this journey didn't start, you know, for me in 2017. This journey started for me in 2010 when I actually like started to really take the next chapter seriously. And you're right. It's like being able to persevere, being able to see the long-term vision. You could be at halftime down 21-0 and like, you know what I mean? You can either just like tap out mentally and say, you know what, this game is over, or you keep playing. And even if you don't think you can win that game, you still are ultimately working towards the next, you know, the next. And so this constant thought process of I have to improve, I can never just become complacent with where I'm at. That's just always been something instilled in me. And I try my best to take those moments, you know, captivate them and then cook them up where, you know, with a dope instrumental or something that makes people feel something. And that's why it's like this most recent post, over 70,000 views, over 4,000 reposts. I've never had anything go that viral, but it's not even about the money. You know, the 100K in a day, people are definitely blown away about. But the biggest thing that gets people is the reaction between me and my dad. You know, when my dad, you know, emphasizes the fact that like, damn, son, like you really just made 100K in a day, and I start pounding on my chest. You know, it's like those moments everyone can relate to because that's a deep down inside part of us, you know, just wants to make our parents proud. And especially for my mom having stage 4 cancer right now, for the last 2.5 years, all I've been thinking about is like, I just want her to see everything happen that I said was going to happen. And so there's this like day-to-day anxiety of I got to accomplish big things now because I want her to see it all. So yeah, bro, I know it's a little long-winded answer, but it's the, you know, there's so much that goes into it because Instagram really should just be more documentation of what's going on. And I would say my second biggest video was when I showed how I only had $3 to my name, you know, and was still saying these are 7-figure fees, was still talking about gratitude and abundance. So I try to show both sides of the coin. You know, I don't want people to see the good stuff. I want them to see how bad, you know, how the lows look, so that way they know they can keep pushing and try to make it there too.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. That was such a great answer.
Yeah,
I was looking for, I mean, it's so fascinating to think because it's really not often at all you find somebody that's, like you said, you have $3 to your name and next thing you know, well, $100,000 a day. the milestones you must have achieved, both mentally and physically and materially, must be just mind-boggling in retrospect. And
Right.
my respect to you, sir. It's such a great accomplishment. And that goes
Salute,
to
bro.
my other.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying thank you, bro. Salute. I appreciate that, man.
Of course. That goes to the other question, which is, if we kind of head into the tunnel of Forex trading in itself, would you mind kind of going into a little bit more in depth, as into, whether it's in terms of, Forex automation trading or manual Forex trading, what is your overall strategy? You could stay brief or, admit
Yeah,
to whatever.
100%. Once again, fellas, analogies is how I describe everything about life, because everything is everything. So if you get people to understand a concept, then that's the biggest thing. If they get the concept, then everything else can make sense later. So what I explain to people is the actual world of Forex is very similar to Jurassic Park. Like you see these lush mountains, you see the trees, you see dinosaurs. Like it looks exciting because it's so much going on. But if you're not well equipped and you don't go in with the right mindset, you will end up just another casualty by the velociraptors. You'll over leverage and run into a T-Rex and not have a map as far as what's the safe route I can take. Like what's the ways that I can ultimately get to whatever that destination is. And so my whole point is people go into it with this preconceived notion that it's going to be easy, when in fact, the numbers are what don't lie. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. So when I look at the overall success rate of Forex, it's very low. Only 4 to 5% of people actually become, consistently profitable. And the other importance of that is how it's marketed. So many people see Forex marketed as something that's as easy as copy and paste, when in all reality that it couldn't be further from the truth. So I feel like the reason why Forex kind of has a little bit of a tainted reputation is because of the way in which it's been marketed to the masses. Now, with that being said, I kind of like really had to dive deep and take a bunch of courses and work on my own craft myself to actually, become a part of the 5%. But when I looked at, what are ways that we autonomize our life? If I need to get somewhere, even for example, right now I'm driving to my skyrise. So I'm not looking at an actual map. I asked Siri to take me home, and she did. And so my whole point is we're all using artificial intelligence and technology to ease, certain things about life that are difficult. And investing is one of those things. So when I came across a tool that was actually getting people results in the market without them even knowing, what's a pip or what's a trend or any of that stuff, that got me excited to want to share this market again. But I've just always been big on transparency and showing people how volatile and how dangerous this market can be, because if you come in with a certain respect, then it's a lot easier to navigate. And that's why I compare the AI software as like going to the zoo. Manual trading is Jurassic Park. You can still come into the park and survive if you have the right tools and mindset, and even thrive and do well. But with the artificial intelligence, it's like bringing people to the zoo where they can see the volatility, but it's behind a glass cage. It's like the lions are safely sitting over there, well fed, and you don't have to worry as much. So those are the two concepts I use to explain Forex. But at the end of the day, people need to know it's the biggest market on planet Earth. So if they're tapping into stocks, if they're tapping into crypto, any type of investing, they should always understand what are the markets and what is the biggest one. And that's why I love it so much. It's like untapped. At any given point, instead of making 100K in that day, I could have made 200K. I could have made 500K, depending on the lot size and the parameters. The earning potential is unlimited, and that's my favorite part.
So a follow-up question with that, what would you say is maybe not your personal leverage ratio, but what would you say most traders, based on your experience, based on what you've seen, how much do people lever up in the foreign exchange market?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the trader themselves, because everybody has to have their own strategy. And why I love comparing it to sports is the fact that at the end of the day, you know, the way I play quarterback is different to how other people play. You know, there's obviously archetypes and models. You know, you have the pocket passer, you have the dual threat, but it's the concept of how do I play the game versus how do others. That comes down to risk appetite and diversification. On my artificial intelligence, I'm only looking to grow my account, but maybe 5 to 10% a month, but it's a much bigger amount of capital, you know, the safe conservative growth. Whereas because my manual blade is so sharp, I know that I can approach the markets with a smaller amount of capital much more aggressively. So the beauty of maximizing these tools and these skill sets is it allows you to, let's say, for example, a 5K account. If I want to risk 20% on that account, I know the most trades I can lose is 4, you know, because obviously I can't risk the full 100%. I don't have the leverage for it. So I can't say 5 trades. No, it would be 4. I could only lose 4 trades. So then I have to ask myself, okay, can I go 1 for 3? Or can I go 3 for 3? You know, these are questions that people have to ask themselves, and it's so much easier to invest and trade when you're not emotionally attached to the money. But obviously, most retail traders, I would say, over 95% of retail traders are emotionally attached to the money. So none of it is truly risk capital, even though on paper, that's how they say you should trade, right? Take whatever risk capital you have, money you can afford to lose, and put that in the market to trade with. But in all reality, especially in today's economy, 40 million people unemployed, nobody really has risk capital like that. I shouldn't say nobody, but the average retail trader doesn't. So that's why people really coming down to asking themselves, what's my risk appetite? How much am I willing to lose? How confident do I feel about my skill set, not only with entries, but maintaining orders? Because what's more important than where you enter is where you exit. Because up until that point of closing out the trade, nothing is official. So once again, to compare it to sports, it's the same as the play going on until the whistle blows. Until you hear the whistle blow, there's no reason to get too excited or too depressed, because nothing is official until it's official. So everything I look at with Forex, I compare it to football or to video games. And that's why I feel like I'm such an effective teacher, because most of us in this niche either are fans of sports or have at one point played video games and understand the concepts of, okay, if I press certain buttons, there will by default come a certain result. So if people look at trading as a video game, if they figure out how to play this game effectively, they can start to print out pretty good size amounts of money. And that's just where my obsession came with the craft. As this is a video game. If I learn how to play, I can get paid.
Awesome. So Jason, the world is at social unrest and economic terror. There are no answers from Washington going forward. Do you have answers? Can we reach the quality of society pre-COVID again? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like we always talk about, like, can we get back to normal? And like, it's that comes down to like, what is normal, you know, because the perspective of normal is different for everybody, even pre-COVID, you know, what's normal. And so we're always looking at the averages, we're always looking at the generalization of what's going on. But I feel like with anything right now, everyone feels like we're in complete and total chaos. And I don't know, you know, what that actual resolution looks like. I surely don't have the answers. I am glad that we're no longer hanging our hat on progression, at least for racial injustice, because I feel like for so long we've been like, oh well, it's getting better, you know, and so instead of really like putting our feet down and really like trying to take control of the situation and really address it the way it needs to be, I feel like oftentimes we hang our hat on progression, and you know, it's just it's as crazy and divided as the country might seem right now. It's still exciting for me to understand that, you know, we do in fact plan on taking action, and people are at least becoming way more aware of it, because it's separating the people who actually understand the injustice and what's going on versus the people who have been blinded by it. And if anything, the reason I appreciate where I grew up in the high school that I went to is because it was a melting pot of so many cultures. You know, I literally got to respect the Muslim culture. I got to respect the Asian culture, Hispanic culture, African American culture, obviously Caucasian. Like I got to respect and get to know so many people growing up in the Washington D.C. metropolitan area. Shout out to the DMV. But I got to get a respect for so many cultures and ethnicities that when I started to travel out into, you know, Western Kansas, and I see, wow, this is predominantly white and Hispanic. And then I travel down to Memphis, Tennessee, and I see, oh, wow, this is predominantly this or that. And my whole point is like so many people are only surrounded by what they get to see and experience. And so for me to have such a broad taste, it's really, if anything, made me love the world more. You know, because it's a fight versus good and bad. It's not a fight versus color. It's a fight versus good and bad. And I just want people to understand that at the end of the day, you know, we're all still people. So I like that we're growing, but we can't forget either that you know, the 1980s, you know, 1970s weren't long ago at all. And we look at the growth just from that period of time, but we're not there. You know, we haven't reached the mountaintop per se of you know, social equality, and it takes adversity in order to grow. No different than the muscle. When you hit the gym, the only way the muscle grows, you have to put it through strain. And right now, as a country, we're going through strain. And whether COVID's real or whether it's not, that you know, I can't say that. All I can speak on is the social injustice and racial injustice, and that's if anything what I, you know, want to bring more attention to, because white privilege is real. You know, that's something that I used to leverage myself. You know, even when I was in high school, and I would go into stores and be looking to shoplift. Once again, guys, I'm big on transparency. You know, I'm not a perfect person. I'm a progressive person. And in order for me to make money at that time, I was shoplifting, you know, North Face jackets. I'm taking whatever I could get my hands on to then go to school and resell. And you know, the whole point of bringing that up is I used to leverage the fact that I was white. I would put a collared shirt on. You know, I would already have a bag full of items in the bag, and I was leveraging the fact that they were going to profile me to be an individual who's already paid for something. They're not going to think for once that this white guy with a collared shirt on is in here shoplifting.
Yeah.
And so for me to be able to always be surrounded by so many cultures, it just lets me know, you know, that right now what's going on is not right. And even for Breonna Taylor, you know, for that whole situation, it's just more icing on the cake to confirm that this shit is not right. You know, like we need some serious change, and people need to really start acknowledging what is going on here. So, I mean, it's so many cases we've seen over the years. The Trayvon Martin situation was probably the one that made me the sickest, just because of the details of the whole thing and how much to this day George Zimmerman continues to flaunt the fact that he killed a teenager that was walking with the iced tea and some Skittles. You know, and so those things are what makes me sick, and those things are what I look at, you know, bigger picture wise, as far as, you know, what do we really need to address versus a disease or a sickness. You know, that's something that's really out of my control. The things that are in my control have more to do along those lines.
Absolutely. So what do you think you value more, time or money?
Honestly, bro, time, because no amount of money can buy time. Time is the most, you know, so like people oftentimes like hang their hat too much on wanting to make money, but the reason the misconception comes from that is because majority of us come from a home in which the only way our parents or family members have ever made money was through a job, right? Like literally clock in, you get paid. You don't clock in, you won't get paid. So throughout history, and most of us being raised in that environment, that's why if we ask a room full of 100 people, fill in the blank, time is, everyone's gonna say money, money, money. But no, it's precious. Like that's why I talk to you guys about my mom. You know, my mom's sick, so I don't, you know what I mean? Like at some point, regardless of whether she was sick or not, none of us know the time and moment that we're all gonna get called up, you know, for us to check out of this world. But the whole point of that is it just goes to show how valuable and precious this time is, because you know, like Uzi Vert said in Dark Queen, he said, "Lose my mama, that's a problem you can't solve," and that's the truth. You know, I listen to that song all the time, and it hits home because it's like, if I have $10 million in my bank, if I have $100 million in my bank, and I lose my mom, that's a problem I can't solve. So it's not so much about the bread; it's about what makes you rich, and it's the things in life money can buy that make you rich. So I just really want people to understand that, because I've been saying that well before I had money. And even now that I have money, I still view myself as like a Bob Marley of Forex. Like, you know, I don't want people to think that that the money is what makes me rich, because there's too many people that are millionaires or billionaires that are committing suicide because they didn't plant the right seeds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, going back to the part where you were exploring the globe, I guess. Going back to that, I mean, that's amazing. The fact that you've gained all this perspective from all these different cultures, all these different countries, probably led you to some kind of rationale, some kind of, you know, base theory rationale that you kind of maybe abide to now that you've gained through all those different exposures to all those different cultures. If so, maybe you could speak on that. I don't know. I'm just curious myself.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool because, like I said, you know, like for me, I went to a really big school, public school. You know, I would say like the best way I summarize our school is like everybody's family is around middle class, like slash upper, like lower middle class slash upper middle class, but nobody's like super well off. You know what I mean? No, obviously if their parents were that wealthy, they'd be in a private school somewhere. But then also on the flip side of coin, like nobody, at least I shouldn't say nobody, but very few people are so broke that they can't afford their next meal. You know, like, but it's once again that kind of community creates nothing but hunger, you know, because it's like you're not eating so much that you're full, but you're not eating so little that you're starving. And it is just enough for you to start dreaming about what's possible. And you know, I just remember like going to play against other schools that would be predominantly white, or other schools that would be predominantly black. And it's like we were the in between, you know. Like I just loved how culturalized and how mixed and blended our school was specifically, because it gave me that appreciation. You know, perspective is the level playing ground. If people had to submit themselves to a new culture for months or for weeks or for years, you know, they would gain a whole new like Tom Cruise in Samurai. You know, it's like that movie is the epitome of what I'm talking about. Like he was fighting against that culture, ended up like either becoming hostage, and then they started training him, and then he literally embraced that culture and saw the beauties within it, and then ended up fighting to the death to try to protect what he thought he hated.
Right. Yeah.
And so the same reason why people don't like Forex is oftentimes because they don't know what it is. And we all are afraid and dislike what we don't know. It's naturally built into our amygdala. It's a natural response when we don't know something, that it's automatically like alert, code red, you know,
Yeah.
evacuate. And so the same thing comes with cultures. When, you know, when people see, unfortunately, when an older white man sees an African American male walking on the same side of the street as him, there's fear in his heart, and it's because he doesn't know. You know what I mean? He doesn't know that kid. He doesn't know what he comes from. He doesn't. That kid could be an artist who has the biggest heart in the world, but he sees a black kid with dreads. You know what I mean? And that's just where the disconnect and barrier comes from, is people not being open enough to actually try to understand.
Do you think that's ever gonna? I mean, it hurts to say.
Right? It's hard to say. I don't see a sickness and a disease like racism ever fully being healed, but I do know that as we continue to rip a lot of those weeds out of the ground, and continue to at least acknowledge where they're at, that's once again, I view this as the filtration process. You know, instead of us hanging our hat on progression and acting like because it's not as bad as it was that we've made it. No, we haven't made it, but we're en route, you know, and the only way to continue to address what needs to get fixed is by pointing out where the weeds are. And a lot of people are literally pointing themselves out. You know, it's like they're literally coming out of the woodworks to, you know, say, hey, yeah, this is what. And I honestly, fellas, I'm down for another civil war if that's what it takes. Like, at the end of the day, you live for something or die for nothing. And like, I've literally been surrounded by Black excellence. I've been surrounded by Hispanic excellence. I've been surrounded by Asian excellence, Muslim excellence. Like, I've been surrounded by so much excellence that it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's about what is the core. What, you know what I mean? If I'm blind, that's even the Bible. It talks about rip your eyes out. Like, if your lens includes that much hate and volatility, you might as well pluck your eyes and just listen to people, and then decide based off what comes out of their mouth. Because if you're so blinded with what you see, then your heart's not even able to actually ever open up and fully engage. So too many people just got the wrong lenses, and they need to be willing to, at least try to open it up. But once again, like you said, somebody who's 60, 70 years old, that's been programmed over their entire life to be thinking that type of stuff, you know what I mean? That it's not to say they can't be saved, but those are the people, once again, that it's going to have to be generational programming. We're going to have to, it's going to require putting it in schools and making sure, you know what I mean? That's what it's going to take. Yeah. Because for people to continue at this point in 2020 to still think that because your skin is white, you're better than somebody who has darker skin, it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's absolutely ridiculous. And to think that white skin doesn't provide privilege is ridiculous as well, because there's think about not just with police, how many tickets I've gotten out of, but like I said, the amount of times that I've leveraged my white privilege in order to actually go, hit licks and do things that I know I shouldn't be doing, just goes to show that if I'm aware of it, and I'm using it in the wrong way, that how can people not acknowledge that this is real? Buying a property, like, bro, imagine trying to live life with one arm tied behind your back, or for that fact, two arms tied behind your back. And then everyone trying to act like, nah, bro, your arms are tied behind your, like, if we're all playing basketball, you know what I mean? Like, you got to dribble with your knees. And it's like, but everyone still expects you to get the same points that I'm getting with both arms. So it's just at some point, people are going to have to at least they got to be willing to listen and open to hear and receive the information. If they're not willing and open, then, you know what I mean, there's not really much we can talk about, because people will fight to the death to prove that they're right about something.
For sure.
Absolutely.
It looks like we have a lot of work to do as a globe, and well, the wise man is the one that listens. So Jason, I'd like to thank you for coming on to Finance Nerds, and
thank you, Jason.
Great talking with you, and it's great seeing you, and it's great to see you're doing so well.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Couldn't agree more, fellas. I love the title of the podcast as well. It's like, even though I'm an athlete, people would oftentimes put that label on me as dumb jock, and it's like, couldn't be further from the truth. Like, when I wasn't playing football, I was playing video games. I was doing photography editing, video editing. Like, I'm a big tech nerd as well. Love reading books now, like, listen to audios. So it's like, once again, this notion that, these like labels that get put onto people through years and years and years of movies giving people that label. Like, if you're a football player, the quarterback, you got to be a bully, and it's like, I was the least thing from that. I was elected class clown out of, 1,000 people in my graduating class. And if anything, I take more pride in that than any award they could have given me, because that lets me know every day they were laughing. I was providing laughter, and laughter in this world is oftentimes the best medicine. So I viewed the ability to make all these different cultures and ethnicities laugh as a gift. And many people didn't see it like that. They saw it as like, well, why would you want to be viewed as the clown? But I viewed it as, who cares what my GPA was? Who cares what this or that was? Like, I was giving y'all some good laughs throughout the years. And that, you know what I mean? Like, that was one of the dopest things. Yeah. So I appreciate what you guys are doing, providing free game, free value. Anybody who's listening to this, make sure you guys go ahead, click that link, subscribe to these guys, and check them out. But keep doing what you're doing, fellas. All we can do is continue to move forward. And there's no need for us to want to run from the work. Like you said, we got a lot of work to do, but we should enjoy the work, like, give us some more work. Like, you know what I mean? Let's go hard, get rested up, and then go hard again. And that's the thing. People got to love the process. If you don't love the process of what you're doing, you might as well stop doing it now and go figure out something that's worth fighting for. Because when adversity hits, when those tests hits, that's what's actually proven the authenticity of your vision. So you should want stuff to actually get hard. You should want some tests to happen, because that's how you create the testimonial. So I appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. The UFC fight this Saturday, Israel Adesanya, Style Bender, the GOAT himself. Make sure you guys tune in and show some love. So you guys enjoy your weekend, and we'll be talking soon.
Would you like to share your information for the audience?
100%. If any of you guys are on Instagram, you guys can check out QB Stew, QB STEW. Once again, guys, you know, it's predominantly motivational, inspirational information. Nipsey Hussle, rest in peace. He said inspiration is the highest form of currency. So my goal is to continue to just provide as much value, as much inspiration as I can every single day. And by default, you know, I hope people get something out of that. So if you guys are listening to this podcast, like I said, make sure you guys subscribe to these guys, check me out, but keep moving forward. That's the biggest thing. Keep pushing, keep going. Don't give in. So appreciate you guys so much. I'm excited for what we're going to do the rest of 2020.
Great, Jason. Appreciate you.
Thank you, man.
Awesome, fellas. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.